So today we are going to do an exit interview with Kent Meyn. Kent is a 42-year career veteran from ACI Mechanical that just retired a couple of months ago. I've known Kent, I think, my entire career here at Story, and our paths have crossed on some projects, but he's done not only a lot of work in central Iowa and with Story, but really around the country. So he is very fitting to capture the stories of central Iowa construction with Kent, and so we'll see what he has to say. Well, if nothing else, you're prepared. So tell me about where you grew up and how Kent Meyn's life started.
So I grew up in northwest Iowa on a small farm. I had two brothers that were 6 and 8 years older than myself. As a junior in high school, I inherited my brother's sodding business. And so it was a pretty good gig because my dad provided the land for the grass. He provided the pickup. He provided the trailer, and he provided the gas for all the equipment. So it was mostly a very profitable business. But it taught me a work ethic. It taught me sales, and it taught me client relationships. I had to go out and muster up my own work. Then
Just a second. So you started that as a junior in high school.
I inherited the business.
Okay. And how long then did you do that?
I did it through up through the summer of my junior year in college, because that's when I got married and moved down here.
Okay.
So I ran about 4 years.
All right. So let's rewind a little bit. What did you do in school? Were you in any sports or band or any activities? Or?
So we were a very small school, Boyden Hall.
Okay.
Smallest class there was. There was no 9-man football back then. So you could play almost every sport, basketball, football, golf, because there weren't that many students. My graduating class was 62 people. So we could really do anything we wanted to do.
I bet you were pretty good.
I was average or above average in certain things, yes. I was the lightest 150-pound center on the football team.
Okay. How about your folks? What were their day jobs?
My dad was a farmer. My mom was a homemaker.
Okay.
All her life. She was originally a nurse. She stopped that when they got married. My grandpa and grandma lived right across the road on my dad's side. So I say I lived a charmed life. I really did. Grew up on the farm, which is a great place to raise kids. I went across the road to my grandpa and grandma almost every day as a child, and they just they're God-fearing parents and grandparents. They instilled a lot of values in me that I still use today.
Yeah. I've got grandkids now, one that lives in town, and the opportunity to see him every day, that's pretty sweet.
It is.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
All right, so back to the sodding business. So keep rolling.
So, I inherited all the equipment, so then I had to go out and do sales. There weren't the big commercial people back then like you see now, so we would lay about 200 yards a day. I'd hire 1 or 2 people to help me in the summer. And so it was pretty good money. I remember when I was a graduating high school student, that year I made $9,000 in the summer, which in 1980 was a lot of money.
Did you include Uncle Sam in that, or was that a cash deal?
So I'm getting to that.
Okay.
So it was $9,000, and I paid sales tax quarterly. And then tax time came in January of the following year, and I'd never paid taxes before. And I went to the accountant, and I got on my books on what I made, and he said I owed $2,174 in taxes. And I had never written a check that big in my entire life. And I can recall my hand shaking as I was writing the check out in his office. So that was a lesson learned about what taxes are to a business. But like I said before, the big thing was sales and dealing with clients. I had somebody come to me and say, "Hey, how about if I pay you cash, then we won't pay the sales tax?" Well, that's an ethics question, isn't it? And I said, "No, I can't do that." So. Lesson learned.
All right. So you did that, but you said you did that through your junior year in college.
Yeah.
before you got married and came to Iowa State. So
Yep.
where'd you start college?
So I went to 2 years at Northwestern College up in Orange City, Iowa, in a pre-engineering program.
Okay.
I kind of followed former employee Brad Hamstra. He came from my hometown. He went from Boyden to Orange City, Iowa. He did the same thing. He was 1 year ahead of me. I got interested in construction. My brother went to University of Omaha in Nebraska under their construction engineering program. I went and visited him one day, big brother. And I thought, well, this is kind of cool. But I really didn't know what it was all about.
Sure.
So I took all my prereqs up in Northwestern, and then I have been dating my to-be wife for many years in high school. We were homecoming king and queen, in fact.
Well, of course you were.
And so she went to beauty school in Mars, Iowa, or cosmetology school in Mars, Iowa,
Yep.
put it that way. And then we got married in the summer before he came down here. And we've been married for
Long time.
43 years.
Yeah. So you did your prerequisites up there, and then did you get married and move, or
Yep,
did you?
got married in August and went on a short honeymoon and came down to Iowa State, and we were terrified. We'd never been away from home in our entire life, and I can remember my wife, our parents moved us down here. They both left, and my wife sat in our newly placed couch in the living room and just cried. I thought, what the heck did we just do?
Where was the honeymoon?
The honeymoon was
Badlands?
in my parents' camper at Leech Lake, Minnesota.
Oh.
'Cause even though I made money on sodding, I bought a brand new car, so I used up all my money. So we did the
Okay.
poor person's honeymoon.
All right. So when you came here, did you immediately start in construction
I
engineering?
did. Went construction engineering, and I got here, and Jerry Chase was the professor in charge back then of construction engineering. And he said, would you like a scholarship? Well, back then, tuition was only $800 a semester, and this scholarship was $500, so that was a no-brainer. So I said, sure. Well, what is it? Well, it's through the mechanical contract. Oh, it was through the sheet metal contractors of Iowa. And I had no idea what that was. I came off the farm. I knew how to combine, till crops, lay sod, but I had no idea what mechanical was whatsoever. So I said yes. Well, at that time, Jim Larson owned ACL Mechanical, and he was also the chair of the Sheet Metal Contractors of Iowa. And my name got out, and so he hired me part-time here at the Ames office.
So when you went to work there part-time, what were you in the shop? Were you estimating? What were you doing?
So I worked part-time during school. I started in the summer, working full-time in the office. But then college started back up. And I had a couple of years left of school yet. So I worked part-time on the job sites. And that job site, first one was Gilman Hall at Iowa State. And if I had a 4-hour block, I'd go work on the job site. Now, this was dead of winter, and so it was cold. There was no heat in the building. It was remodeled. And I was working on the roof. And so what did Kent do? He wore his green farm coveralls to the job site, and I would go back to school for like a 3 o'clock class, something like that, and I'd take my coveralls off, and I would set them right next to my desk. And back then, that was what people did. In fact, I can't remember the name, but there was a guy who worked for Story Construction doing the exact same thing I was doing. And I can remember him putting his clothes next to the desk. And I tell my kids that. All 4 of my kids went to Iowa State, and they were just appalled that I would, wear old farm coveralls into the class, but let alone drop them off next to my chair.
Sure.
But I learned a lot that way. I had no idea what ductwork was. You know, a huge lesson learned for me. I was getting critical of, back then we used to seal ductwork with what they called hard cast. It was like, it was cloth tape. You dip it in like an Elmer's glue kind of stuff, and you put it on the ductwork, on the joints, and it would seal it up airtight after it hardened. But in doing so, you're dipping this strip of cloth into Elmer's glue-like stuff, and of course what happens, it drips everywhere. So what I saw up on the ductwork is glue everywhere. Even though it might have been covered up, it just didn't look very professional. So my superintendent was pretty wise, wiser than me, because I was critical of him, of the installation. So my next 4 hours sitting in the job site, guess what my job was? I was to put the hard cast on the ductwork. And there I learned really quickly, it's very difficult to take this tape from the floor to climb a ladder and put it on there without dripping the glue all over yourself and the chair and the ductwork. So that was one of my first lessons learned on the job site, how to communicate and how not to be critical until you've done the work yourself.
What was his name?
Mark Stevenson.
Great.
Mark worked for us. He was one of my superintendents for local projects for many years. Then he left to go to Iowa State, became a project manager there.
Okay.
And we're still friends this day. He came to my retirement party, and we had just a wonderful memory lane conversation.
Oh, cool. So you had mechanical emphasis.
Yep.
And you graduated. Did Glenda, was she then practicing cosmetology here?
Yep. She worked for, back in the day, back in the early 80s, Financial Image Makers had about 6 or 7 salons here in Ames and Story City and one other town. And they're like the premier place to work. She was blessed to get a job there, and she worked there, put me through school, worked a couple more years after that, and then in 1987, we had our first child, Austin.
Okay.
And she stayed home for, I think, 17 years raising kids.
All right. Yeah. So give me the child rundown and what they're doing now, and then we'll jump back into your professional career.
Austin's my oldest. Ages, I probably won't say, I won't get it right, but he's in the high 30s. He works for J.E. Dunn Construction. Has worked with them for numerous years, all his career, in fact. My second son, Joshua, works for Beiser Lumber in Des Moines as a sales guy. Ashley is a stay-home mom in Des Moines. She was a home ec teacher until she got married, and she stays home and raises kids. And the last one is Megan. She is a math teacher in Ankeny. Austin has 3 children. Joshua has 1. Ashley has 2. And Megan just has 1 that's only about 6 weeks old. So 7 grandkids, and we are, as we talked the other day, Mike, I'm just blessed beyond all measure.
Yep. And they're close.
And they're close. They all live in Ankeny and West Des Moines. Yep. So in retirement, we talked about this. I went down to pick up my 4-year-old son from preschool, and he was standing outside, and he sees me drive up, and he looks at his teacher and says, "That's my papa, that's my papa." And that's immeasurable.
Yeah.
Enjoy.
Cool. So you graduate, and did you just go work at ACI right away?
I did. Back in 1985, jobs to come by were not very good. The economy wasn't all that great. The placement for Connie students was not high unless you wanted to go a long ways away. And we're kind of family people. We wanted to be able to go back home. Both our families are from Northwest Iowa. And so I took the job at $23,700 a year. Whether it was going rate or not, I don't remember, but I liked where I was working. I was learning a lot. I liked people I worked with.
Sure. Who were some of those people in the early days that you worked closely with at ACI?
Well, Mark Stevenson, first of all. He taught me a lot of stuff in the field about work. And then Larry Muller was our production manager at that time. And they were all very kind to me. I didn't know what in ductwork you have slip and drives. I didn't know what that was at all. He drew me a picture. Back then, our shop was in back, and he would just show me the stuff. Here, this is what it is. This is what I put together. The shop guy, Bernie Kramer, he was probably 64 and worked till 67. He patiently taught me how ductwork is built, and very, very kind and respectful. And I just owe a lot of my career to those guys.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so you started. What did you? How did you start? Were you in the field? Were you in the office?
So mainly in the office. Okay. Once I graduated, I didn't work in the field anymore. And then, so there's some of the life lessons I learned early in the office. I was doing one of the first expansions of the Ames Library in mid 80s, probably 87, I suppose. And we had a chiller that was going to be entombed in the basement. So the timing of receiving that chiller was a big deal.
That's a creepy term, entombed?
Yeah, you couldn't get it out. So
I got you.
You had to get it in there and build the walls around
Gotcha.
it. So anyway, I got wind it was going to come late. And the rep in Des Moines was Harthammer. And it was a McQuay unit. And I called down there and found out confirmed it was going to get there late for our construction schedule. And I started reading the staffer I was talking to, the Riot Act. And her job was really just to coordinate deliveries and track deliveries. She didn't do any of the submittals or the purchasing. That's what her only job was. But in my self-righteous, young, conny, arrogant project management attitude, I read the Riot Act. About 2 hours later, I get a call from Kurt Hammer, one of the owners. And he rebuked me for what I did. Then as a kind father, he talked about it, and we found a different path to get it done. And the way he handled that situation, I will never forget. And I have never, ever spoken that way to anyone in the industry again. I was completely wrong. I was young. I was naive. And I was taught a really good life lesson. And when I retired here about 2 months ago, I sent his son, who runs the business now, that note and say what a difference his dad made in my life. Just that little half-hour conversation changed who I was for the rest of my career.
How many of those Kurt Hammer conversations have you had with people in your career?
Oh, man. You know what? So I was on the advisory council for Iowa State University. And one of the things I had the opportunity to do was speak to the top 20 or so. I didn't pick them, top 20 graduating seniors in construction engineering. And one of the things I taught, this was in the spring, right before they graduated, I said, don't ever burn bridges. You may be right, but don't burn a bridge with a client or a subcontractor or an employee, because our construction industry may seem huge, but it's really a small number of companies. And I said, the odds of you working for the person you just burnt the bridge with are very high. People change jobs all the time. And sometime you might find yourself working for them, not them working for you. So I encourage them not to do that.
All right. So that was an early memory and an early lesson. So talk about the progression, your progression through ACI, and really the progression of ACI.
Yeah. So I did, in my first 10 years, I did a lot of work at Iowa State University, and I did a lot of work with story construction. In my early years, if it was in the Ames area, if Story got it and we were legitimate low bid, a lot of bid and spec work back then, we got the job. And if it was design build, a lot of times back then in the late 80s and 90s, if Story was on the team, we were on the team with them. And so we had a lot of good experiences. I remember working with one of your superintendents, Marty Martinson. We were doing the first buildings for the research park down here. I remember you guys did your own tilt-up panels. You poured them and you tilted them up on your own.
Yep.
But I learned a lot. Marty was like, gosh, I don't know, he's probably in his 50s. He seemed older to me back then.
Yeah.
But just a wonderful gentleman. He spoke very patiently. He knew I was young, and he just looked out for me. And I'll never forget that guy. We did a couple other jobs together. And so, he was a huge blessing. Then did other stuff. We did Firestone, Bridgestone down in Ankeny with Story. Learned a lot of stuff on that project from your staff. Then I started doing more traveling work. I started doing work for the ammunition plant, Middletown, Iowa. Did work off at Air Force Base. And then we started getting into industrial work. It all started with Lennox Industries over in Marshalltown with Lathrop. Lathrop was a merit shop portion of Turner back from Toledo, Ohio.
Okay.
So I did the Lennox expansion with them, and that went well. So they invited us to do a glass plant over in DeWitt, Iowa, float glass facility. Had no idea what that was.
Yeah, we did work over there too.
And then we went over to Fresno, California, built another glass plant, and that went well. Then we went down to Moorhead, Kentucky, and built a plant that built the bumper for the Ford pickups. I did more industrial work again, Ball Plastics here in town. Did that with you guys. From there, I went to a Ball can plant, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Then I started working for Pella Windows, did a plant here in Iowa, did a plant in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. Then I started doing pet food projects all the way from Tennessee to California to Texas and Colorado. And the one thing I learned through all those projects, a lot of them were design build, is the power of personal relationships. I purposely made a point to get to know the client, the ownership team, or the management team, and to build a trust. They knew that whatever I did, I had their best interest in heart. Mm-hmm. These plants are built for generations, not just built for the next 20, 30 years. They're built for generations. And I would say probably half the projects I worked on these industrial sites were for family-owned businesses. And they knew at the end of the day, I treated their money like it was my own money. I tried not to waste money, but I tried to give them the best possible product for the finances they had available. And so I totally enjoyed that. If there's one thing I miss in retirement is working for these clients and these owners.
Sure. Well, and you probably had some travelers too. I mean, ACI,
Yep.
It was pretty common for us all to have some travelers.
Yep. I had
Less
a core
travelers
group.
today.
I had a core group, Mike Wessels, Tom Sweeney, our superintendents. They traveled. I traveled years and years with these guys. And in doing so, you get to know them well. You get to know their families, their spouses, their kids, their grandkids as time goes on. And so they're still friends to this day. Yep. And I hold them all in high regard because they made me who I was.
So who were some of the partners that you worked with, like the other trade partners or the GCs? Who was part of that band of partners that did these things?
Well, with Story, we did East Penn Manufacturing. Remember that up in Oldwine? I didn't travel a lot of other places with Story.
Because we didn't travel a lot of places.
Right.
You guys were far more national than we are.
Yeah, so with Gleason Constructors out of Sioux City, we did a lot of work with them. That started with Swift Eckridge in Jonesboro, Arkansas. With White's Ag, well, it was...
T.E. Iberson?
It was T.E. Iberson at first. They joined White's Ag later. We did many pet food projects with them. And with them... what we learned is the whole thing of partnering. Remember, partnering is kind of the term in early 2000s, and some jobs you have this partnering program where you kind of all looked out for each other, and you have these meetings, and you come out like feeling like a warm, fuzzy peach. That was a poorly run meeting, but they were really good at doing partnering on these design-build feed mill projects, and it was truly a team going in. There was one time that the owner came out and said, well, I think we should get a second price on the electrical work or maybe a different mechanical. And that Iberson team went to the owner and said, if they're out, we're out. This is the team we have. This is who we know we can build the best product for you in the time frame you need. And so that's how we went to go to market. And their ownership teams of the clients bought into that. And in a well-run partnering session, you got buy-in from all the trades and the owner, because he's an important part of it. Especially on design build, he has to make decisions, and he has to make them quickly so we can keep up with the design. And so the best project we ever did was a pet food facility in Victorville, California. And yes, it was monthly trips out there, but that was probably the best project we ever had getting along with clients, and it all went very smoothly. And talking about getting smoothly, I mentioned before about how many projects I've done with Story Construction. Mm-hmm. And I think I told you this over lunch here a few weeks ago. Either I have bad memory or I don't recall ever leaving a Story Construction project at the end, not being appreciative and happy and shaking hands and say, we'll see you on the next project. I actually have pretty good memory, and
you do have a good memory.
That's the absolute truth. I just from Marty on to the newer superintendents to doing your CP 2.0 scheduling process, and that's really partnering also because every day you get together and look at, okay, what's going on the next week? How can we get out of your way? If we get out of your way, will you get done a day faster? that's the whole process. It's really a partnering thing on scheduling, okay? And if you have the buy-in of all the trade partners, it works very well. When you don't have the buy-in of the trade partners, that's when it falls apart. But we didn't have that back then. We just had the old-fashioned scheduling and a bar chart or a CPM chart.
Yep.
But it all worked very well. And I think it's because, we're in Ames, Iowa. We're not working for a client that's a GC that's 1 million miles away that you'll never do business with again. We see each other in church. We see each other at the basketball games, Iowa State. We see each other on the softball fields, whether you're playing with ourselves or watching our kids play. And this is going back to the burning bridges thing. You don't do it because you're going to work with them again sometime.
Yep. There's an old adage that construction is a local business.
Yeah.
And we certainly, our companies are very local to one another. But even in the pet food industry and the places that you went, it's a small community. So you need to remember Donnie Paris would always say, "A man is only as good as his word."
That's right.
And that's still true today. That was stated far more often back then than it is today.
Yep. And people in our own companies switch jobs. Okay, some of them come back, which is really cool. They come back to your company. But in the clients we served, you may have a production manager. You helped get a plant going and worked with them every day for a month getting the processes going. And all of a sudden, 2 years later, you're doing a project, and he or she walks into that meeting with a different client altogether, and they switch jobs. They moved 1,000 miles away, and now they're working for another company.
Yep.
So that the importance of not burning bridges and working with people.
You've done a lot of naming of people that have made an impression upon you so far. Any others, either inside ACI or in the industry, and or through your association work, that have left a mark on Kent?
I can't say names. If I could, somebody learned. I was chair of ABC of Iowa. I was chair twice, and I was also chair of the Apprenticeship Training Trust. But as chair of the association, volunteer chair, we would travel with Greg Spinner, the president of the local chapter, and visit members. And my very first, I've been with ABC now for five years on the board. Got to be chair and started to travel. And in my head, I thought our members were all like Story Construction, ACI, Todd and Sargent, brick buildings with storefront glass windows. I really didn't have a grasp of who our membership actually was. And my very first visit was in a small town southeast of Des Moines, and we drove up to this place on Main Street. The front door was a screen door. The handle was probably there since 1920. Dark bronze handle. Turned the door, walked in. Turned the handle, walked in. Met with a company that has a heating and cooling business for generations. His grandson was in the apprenticeship program. And I was humbled about what they've all done with a small company. They only had like 8 employees, but that's all they had to have to keep the family business going for generations.
Sure.
And they paid dues, just like all members, whether you're part of master builders or associated builders and contractors, you pay dues. And with those dues, there's expectations you're going to get something with those dues. And I got back in the car, sat next to Greg, and Greg was driving, Greg Spinner, and I sat quiet. And I started reflecting on what I just seen. And here I was, chair of an association, volunteer chair of an association, and I thought, these people don't have the wherewithal to go to the State House, both in Iowa and Washington, D.C., to fight for merit shop rights. They don't have the wherewithal to have a safety program. They don't have the wherewithal to have an apprenticeship program. They pay dues, and that becomes our responsibility to serve them. And from that day on, I took on a whole new level of responsibility with my position as chair, volunteer as it was. Was I smart at all of that stuff? No. But boy, I sure began to realize who I was really serving. I was serving people that just depend on us because they don't have the wherewithal to do it.
Yeah. What year was that?
It was 2016.
Okay.
I was chair in 2016 and in 2020 during the pandemic. Yeah, yeah. So those are some big impacts I had. I don't know who the guy was, but that was a big deal.
Sure. Well, so you had 42 years in the industry, you said,
Correct.
right?
Yep.
What have been a couple of the technological innovations that have changed the game in your time? Because you don't have any glue on you right now, so I'm assuming you weren't taping up ductwork this morning.
I cleaned up from that. You know, Mike, the thing that I really saw a difference in is that technology. You know, when I started, computers just came out. Okay, we had that dang fax machine. You know, that's how we transfer stuff. Someone through the mail, a slower pace. Now pace is so much faster. We demand things faster. But one of the things I really noticed, excuse me, is that it's easy to hide behind emails. And Teams meetings and Zoom meetings are great. They're efficient. They save money because you're not traveling to California or Colorado. But it's way different getting to know somebody at a personal level and building a trust from a laptop screen to seeing them in person. And what I have seen over the time, people send out proposals and they don't make a follow-up phone call. They just email it out. And if they couldn't even pick the person out in a lineup who they're emailing the proposal to. And that's not the way it was. You started much later in your career than I did, but that's not the way it was. And I see that as a huge change. It can be corrected, yeah. Are all Zoom and team meetings bad? No. But the way Kent Meyn worked is I worked off relationships.
Yep.
And having that personal relationship, shaking that hand, see them at the meeting, and they're a little downtrodden. Well, John, hey, I saw you didn't snake yourself today. Well, my son's really sick back home. Oh, what's up? Well, he explains it. You don't learn that on a Teams call.
Yep.
And so that was always very important to me. Relationships is huge in construction. There's nothing better than that handshake.
Yeah, it's you're right. It matters today as much, if not more than ever. And it seems like it's more few and further between today. It's there are relationships between old timers, and we need to figure out ways in which we can foster that with newer people in the industry, because a lot of problems get solved that way, and a lot of joy and heartache get shared and memories made through the relationships, not through the exchange of transactions.
Yeah. You know, we talked about this the other day too. Because of the personal relationship you have, see their face, shaking their hand, talking to them, taking them out for dinner, whatever it might be, the odds of you sending an email, the odds of me sending an email to Dean McCormick, who was at Iowa State for years, or to Mike Espesad at Story Construction, lecturing you on your poor ability to schedule a job or poor ownership on Dean's part, FP&M for the project at Iowa State, is slim to none. I would never, ever do that.
Because I would call Glenda and see if you were off your meds if I ever got one of those from you.
But I would never do it because I have a personal relationship with you. And if I didn't have that personal relationship and I didn't know who you were, maybe people would be more comfortable sending that scathing email. But if you have a personal relationship with them, the odds of you doing that are very, very slim. And I see those kind of emails going out as my career came to an end. I would see it every once in a while. And it was disheartening. That's not what the construction industry needs to be. There are enough difficulties in this business that we don't need subcontractors and general contractors and subcontractors sending emails back and forth blaming everybody for what's gone wrong.
So you're hitting on some of this, but if you were speaking to young people today, or speaking to people about the future of the industry, based on your experience in it, what sort of charge would you give them, and/or encouragement would you give them?
I guess somebody in my Bible study the other day, we talked about what would be your legacy. What would be written as your epitaph, I guess the right word is, on your tombstone. And about 3 weeks before I retired, someone came to me who I'd been working with to take my place. And he said, I've never met anybody that was so concerned about the project and about the product we're putting in for the owner. And to me, that summarized my career. I wanted to do good for ACI. They were my employer. I needed to be profitable for the employer. But I wanted to produce a product at the end of the day that would last, like I said before, for generations. And to do that, you had to have the rapport with the owner. You had to understand what they wanted, what was most important to them, and build the job accordingly. Never did I intentionally put a product in that I knew would only last 5 years, 10 years. The products we put in had to last for a very long time and be as maintenance-free as possible. And that took some effort. And that's one legacy. I was glad to hear him say that, because I had spent my career trying to do the very best we can. You know, going back to Iowa State, working with Dean and Leroy Brown, I would go back and do warranty work for them after the 1-year warranty is over. Because if we did something wrong, we fixed it. Didn't matter if it was out of warranty or not. And because of that, I had a tremendous relationship with all the guys and gals at FP&M. Same thing.
Yep.
So the other thing we talked about the other day is, what do I do in retirement? And I volunteer for a group called Sleep in Heavenly Peace. We make beds for kids that don't have beds. And the motto is, no kid in our town sleeps on the floor. And so when I started volunteering there, it's with retired guys and gals. Many are in the high 60s and 70s. And the first day I volunteered was about a month ago. And who walks in to volunteer next to me are retired inspectors of Iowa State University who I had worked with many, many, many years ago. I mean, Mike, we had talked about burning bridges. Is every job at Iowa State a cakewalk? No. It's bid and spec work. So as a contractor, you're trying to get work done as cheaply as possible and still meet the requirements of the contract documents.
Right.
Sometimes as the owner, they want the best possible project. You may even be beyond what the specs call for. There's a little rub there, isn't there? But what would it be like if I would have burnt a bridge with 2 or 3 inspectors at Iowa State? Word got around that Kent's hard to get along with. And all of a sudden, 20 years later, I'm volunteering with them at Sleep in Heavenly Peace, making beds for kids that don't have beds. It wasn't oh, there's Kent. Oh, there's Mike. We greeted each other with a handshake and a hug and said, man, we haven't seen each other for a long time. How's it been? What's life been like for the last several years? And it happened to several people. And so, again, it goes back to relationships. And, yeah.
How about travel? Do you have any travel that you're looking forward to in retirement? My wife and I have cruised several times. We actually have several cruises already planned for next year. My family has grown. Again, 4 kids, 7 grandkids. We're all taking a family vacation to Florida next June. But my focus isn't on selfish travel. My focus is how I can serve others. Sure.
We have in my church, we have a lot of widowed older adults, either male or female. And I've gone to them and said, how can I help serve you? I'm not looking for money. I'm just looking, how can I use my resources while I'm still healthy yet helping to serve others?
Well, yeah, I think that's a fitting way to end, is that while you look nostalgically at the past, your focus is forward. And when we did have lunch a couple weeks ago, you talked about serving others, serving your family, and serving your church. And so you're going to live your life through the windshield, not through the rearview mirror. No. Very fitting.
Thank you.
Yeah. There you have it, directly from Kent, Meyn. Northwest Iowa boy, sod layer. I never called him sod buster, but now I kind of wish I would have. His reflections on relationships and integrity really stick with me. None of that surprises me in hearing Kent's story, even though I knew much of it. I didn't know all of it, but that's really who he is, Kent Meyn. Thanks, Kent.